Okay. Chapter 12, verse 1. And the Lord said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house into a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great. Thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So Abraham departed, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Now, if you look at what God instructed Abraham to do, he instructed him to depart, to leave his country, leave his kindred. He had something for him to do. Sometimes family gets in the way. Abram had followed those orders to a certain degree, probably much like we do. He was a bit hesitant. Probably should have left Lot there, but he took Lot with him. You ever make a mistake and realize it sometime later? Departing is often the correct thing to do, and often it's the wrong thing to do. You say, that sounds like a contradiction. No. Sometimes it's the right thing to do. Sometimes it's the wrong thing to do. Many a saint has left what they should have stayed and stayed when they should have left. You know, it's hard to see people go, but sometimes the best thing for somebody to do is go. And sometimes the best thing for them to do is don't move. Those are decisions that are hard to make because you don't normally get an answer written on the wall. Amen. You don't normally get a recording in the mail. Mission impossible. Turn to 2 Timothy a minute. Second Timothy 2, verse 19. Nevertheless, the foundation of God standeth sure, having this seal, the Lord knoweth them that are his, and the Lord, and let everyone that nameth the name of Christ depart from iniquity. If you don't name the name of Christ, I guess you're okay. Well, it just says to those that name the name of Christ. Why? Because a lot of people who do don't. Iniquity will cause us to depart if we do not depart from it. Amen. Iniquity will cause us to depart if we do not depart from it. There are times you have to depart from stuff. Yes, sir. If you don't, it'll cause you to depart. God only knows how many saints are sitting in a seat somewhere on Wednesday or Thursday night or Sunday when they should be in church, but they didn't depart from something they should have departed from. So they end up departing from what they should not have departed from. It's not really rocket science. It's really kind of simple. And I was doing some reading the other day, and I thought to myself, the Bible is often so simple that it's hard. Amen. You think it should say more, and that's just what it says. It says what it says. You don't need any more. But you want more because you're not satisfied with the way that answer came out. Amen. A lot of Christians don't like the way something happens, and so there must be something else. Isaiah 59. I've had people tell me, and I'm sure you have, if you've ever dealt very much with people on one-on-one, well, I just can't stop that, or I just can't do that, or... And it's not that they can't. You know, departure for one person may not be that difficult, but departure for another person may be difficult. It's going to have to be something you're going to want to do. People who don't quit smoking don't want to. I never was hooked on it. Some people got hooked. They're hooked on it. It is nicotine. I mean, it's a drug. People get hooked on it. Amen. But with God's help, you can do that. But it's something they don't want to do. Amen. You know, the devil has a lot of ways to get a hold of people. And they don't think about that. They don't think about the devil being involved in what's going on in their life. See, either the Lord's directing you or Satan is, one or the other. Isaiah 59, look at verse 2. But your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you that he will not hear. Sin and iniquity are like a wall of separation between you and God. That's right. It's things you can't control. As much as every one of us in this room think, I can stop doing something, we don't realize how tough the flesh is until you try that. Right. It's not easy. Nobody that's in here that's been a Christian very long doesn't know what I'm talking about. You understand what I'm talking about. You know that your life is sometimes hindered by the things you know you need to depart from, but back to 2 Timothy a minute. So the cause of departure is normally sin, iniquity. In Proverbs 3, and I'm not going to turn there, but we're warned to depart from evil. Depart from evil. I'm sure you know this, and I'm not going to tell you something you don't already know, but this world is quickly going to be totally in the clutches of Satan. Right. Because of the evil that is let go. You know, if something is moral, you can be morally right, you can be morally wrong. But if something is moral, it's right to do, no matter what legislation you put against it, that doesn't make it. You say, well, we'll make it a law that they have a right to do that. That doesn't make it right. Making laws doesn't change morality. Morality is a personal thing. Crazy world you live in. Crazy bunch of nuts. Hollywood runs the world. 2 Timothy 4, verse 10. For Demas has forsaken me, having loved this present world, and is departed unto Thessalonica, and so forth. I don't know how many people today have departed from the faith because they fell in love with this world. And I'm not picking on anything tonight, but Hollywood Disneyland is a pleasurable thing. All the excitement, all the things you ever wanted to do, you can do it there for $4,000 or $5,000. I personally wouldn't waste my money to go there, but hey, it's your choice. But I can tell you that place is full of evil. That's right. I don't know what Walt Disney would have done if he were living, but I know Walt Disney didn't start out that way. His cartoons weren't designed to promote wrong stuff. But now that when you get down the road a few years and you look back on them, you can see some things that you didn't see before. Why? Because Satan's a snake. That's right. He's slicker than Snot and a doorknob. So why did Demas depart? He loved the present world. That's not hard. That's easy. You know what happens when Christians get in love with this world, with all the stuff there is out there? They depart from church and depart from the Bible and depart from what? It's not that hard. And any of us can get there. Don't go saying you can't do it, because you don't know what you'll be up against next week. I'm not going to turn there, but in 1 John 2:15-16, we're told not to love what? Nor the things in the world. Not to love the world. You say, well, that leaves a pretty thin... Yeah. I thought the gate was narrow when I read it in my Bible. And the other gate was wide, so... Well, amen. Do you know why Lot departed in the direction he did? Because he coveted what he saw. If you go back and read it, it's like the Garden of Eden before blah, blah, blah. In this world, you can say whatever you want. Go ahead. I mean, it's pretty. It's pretty. The Lord's kind of uglying some of it up right now, but I seen a sign that said, a cartoon that said, in California, the first frame said, don't forget your suntan lotion. The second frame said, don't forget your snorkel. But of course, it's our fault. You do realize that the warming trend on this planet is our fault. We who won't go along with electric cars that catch on fire. You heard Chevy quit making the Volt, didn't you? As of this year, it's done. It had over 400 fires. I told you. I told you them lithium batteries were no good. But you can't tell with the Weather Channel. All right, 1 Timothy 4. Verse 1, now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Now that's not hard, is it? I mean, anybody in here with any kind of brain power can figure that out. Paul Crouch, speaking to Kenneth Copeland, said, somebody said, I don't know who it was, but they claim that you faith teachers declare that we are gods. You're a god. I'm a god. Small g now. But we are the gods of this world. He knows better now. Amen. Well, you're a god, small g. To this, Jan Crouch referred to Copeland's enthusiastically and exclaimed, he's going to say yes, and I love it. Well, Jan, just kiss me on the cheek. Benny Hinn, when you say, I'm a Christian, you're saying something in Hebrew because it doesn't make sense. I'm a little Messiah walking on the earth. In other words, this is a shocking revelation. Might I say like this? You're a little God standing on the earth running around. This is all the people you're supposed to depart from. This is the people that weak Christians listen to and get such a blessing out of them. The Lord said, quit, watch out. That's right. Doctrines of devils. Frederick K.C., Frederick Price was his name. I've listened to him a couple times for about 15 minutes, and he sounds good. He really does. But boy, what you got to care for is what you don't look up. He said, Adam, as I said, gave it, the earth, away to the serpent, to the devil. Okay. As a result of it, he got his behind kicked out of the garden. He went out of Eden. Speaking of that, I saw a cute cartoon or a thing today. Sunday school teacher wanted the kids to draw a picture of, God or the apostles or something, just a Bible picture. So she went around to this one little girl, and she had a car, and there was two people in the back seat and one in the front seat. And she looked at it, she says, "That's not a Bible picture, is it?" He said, "Yeah, that's God driving Adam and Eve out of the garden." Only a kid would think like that.
They were all in one accord?
Yeah, in one accord. Noah's Day was on a neon. The knee is on the dashboard, knee's on the, yeah. He went out of Eden, out of the garden. He began to wander around, and he was troubled from day one. Now God was out of business. God was out of the earth realm. God had no more stock in the earth. No more, none at all. Nothing he could do, not a thing he could do. The only way God could get back into the earth realm, he had to have an invitation. He had to have an invitation. So God looked around, saw different men, saw Noah, saw different ones. He gave them a few instructions. They did what he said, so and so and so and so. And finally he got a point where he had his plan ready for operation, and he saw a man named Abraham. You know what? There's so much truth mixed with the error in that thing that'll just mess your mind all up. The Lord never lost the earth. Yeah, I'll read you a couple more. This sometimes gets sick more than funny. Benny Hinn. Adam was a super being when God created him. I don't know whether people know this, but he was the first Superman. First of all, the scriptures declare clearly that he had dominion over the fowl of the air and the fish of the sea, which meant he used to fly. See how you can just take any kind of stuff and make a doctrine out of it? I mean, you just throw, people go, I didn't know that. Yeah, he had a cape. He got it from one of the whales or something. Of course, how can he have dominion over the birds and not be able to fly? How can he have dominion over the fowls of the air and fish of the sea, which many used to fly? Of course, how can he have dominion over the birds and not be able to do everything that the subject does? In other words, that subject, if it does something, you can do it. So you have dominion over it. Adam not only flew, he flew into space. He was with one thought would be on the moon. I had enough. You know what? We laugh at that, but that's how they come up with all that stuff. They take stuff out of the Bible and come up with it. And you listen to this guy preach, not the Frederick guy, you listen to him preach and you be convinced that he's straight as an arrow, but you just got to listen long enough to realize he's pulling a giant leg. All right, enough of that. Seducing spirits, I mean, what do you call that? If that's not a seducing spirit, what do you call it? Doctrines of devils, what do you call it? If it's not that, what is it? Now, I know they think we were. Matter of fact, Paul Crouch damned us all to hell. if we believed in doctrine. He said that he didn't believe in doctrine, and all the people who did were damned to hell and never get out. I mean, that's the kind of guys that they're on the radio, they're on the TV. That's what they are. You got to watch them. Okay. Hebrews 3:2. The guy that was, not Paul Crouch, but the other guy, had the TV program. I can't think of his name. No. I think the Pull the Leg program or something. Yeah. He told a man whose wife had Alzheimer's, and he was wanting a wife that, and the guy said to him, he said, well, he told him, he says, as long as you take care of her, because the Bible tells you have to meet all of her needs. As long as you take care of her. But he said, I guess Alzheimer's is a sort of death, so just consider that she died. That's the stuff. And he said it with a straight face. I watched him. He said it with a straight face and went on to the next question. Never. And I said, now there's hundreds of thousands of people listening to this guy, and they think if my wife or my husband gets Alzheimer's, I can put them away and consider them dead, and I can get another wife. Not one scripture verse. And if he'd used Romans 7, I think I'd have went on the air and beat him up. But Hebrews 3:12, that's where that stuff comes from, brothers, I'm telling you. And then I've had people over the years that go to church, have come to church here, and they never joined. The case came to church here, and they'd say, did you hear so-and-so on the TV? And I said, I don't listen to it. Oh, he's so good. I said, you better be careful. Right. It wasn't too long. They weren't here. We weren't feeding them. Yep. See how it works? They weren't eating. That's what it was. Hebrews 3, I mean, when 99% of the congregations are getting food, why isn't the 1% getting it? They don't want it because you're not agreeing with what they want to do. 3:12, did I say that? Take heed, brethren, lest there be any one of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. So caution in departing. Unbelief seems to be the culprit here. Israel is an example not to follow. Verse 6, chapter 4, verse 6 of Hebrews. Seeing therefore it remaineth that some must enter in, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. Verse 11, let us labor therefore to enter into the rest, lest any man fall from the same example of unbelief. So you want to watch. Unbelief will make you fall. I know people say, well, you just think you're right about everything. I say, no. I've been wrong about a number of things over the years, but I know the Bible's right. So therefore, I know if the Bible says something is wrong, then I don't have to dig into the Hebrew and the Greek and the Aramaic and the Pig Latin. I don't have to do that. Why? If it says it's wrong, it's wrong. Or if it says it's right, it's right. More people get into think, well, just because you think it's wrong, don't make it wrong. You're right. You're absolutely right. Just because I think something's wrong doesn't make it wrong. But if I think it's wrong because God says it's wrong, at that point, it doesn't matter what you think. Departing from God doesn't mean somebody lost their salvation, but it would certainly include a failure to seek God in prayer and a lack of reading His Word. I've never known too many people that were out of the church that were reading the Bible faithfully every day. You'd have a hard time, wouldn't you? When you got into forsaking not the assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some is. And it was the habit of Paul when he was in the town to be sure he went to the tabernacle. or the synagogue or whatever. As his Bible says here this way, as his manner was. So you have to ignore those, or you have to say they don't mean what they say they mean. Because if they mean what they say, then you're in trouble. I remember when we were in Okinawa, and we were all messed up doctrinally. I better be careful what I say here. We were all messed up because of our background as to whether you were saved and could keep it, or you could lose it, or what you could do. And we were always taught you could lose it. And when we got into some teaching from some Baptists who were Calvinist, that's what I was taught. Baptists were Calvinist because they believed in eternal security. And I remember saying to my wife, "Come in here a minute." I said, "I want you to look at something. Either the Bible is lying or we've been taught wrong." You know who we voted for? Because I just was always taught, but because I wasn't a Bible reader, and a lot of the preachers that we were around weren't Bible preachers, they were preachers of the denominational, they were denominational preachers. So you can be a denominational preacher and be wrong, because you've got to teach what the denomination teaches. That's what I like about being independent. If you don't like it, I'll preach it somewhere else. So you need to understand there's a caution in departing. You don't need to quit doing everything, or you might be in trouble. And I'm not going to turn there, but in Job chapter 21 and Job chapter 22, you might remember there they asked the Lord to depart from them. We don't need your knowledge. We don't need it. And I'm afraid America has come to that point where she's told God, we don't need what you got. We can handle this on our own. And God must be sitting in heaven going, hey, you're doing a good job. How are you going to stop that flood? Record snow packs in the Cascades. Right now on the ground, the ski places are seeing 62 inches of snowpack. And they just got another 1.5 foot the other day. And it's going to warm up. They said it's really going to get hot. And all that water's going to come running down through there. See what he's saying? The Lord says, if you think you can handle it, go ahead. Now to be careful what we're walking away from. Amen. Say, well, I don't understand all of it. Oh, okay. Just tell God you don't understand it. I'm sure he'll help you, but don't turn your back on it. That's the thing I tell people, don't give up on it. Just because you don't understand it, I mean, nobody in here, and I've used this a zillion times, but it's true, nobody in here took a course and opened up the first page and said, oh, I don't need to read the rest of the book, I already know all this. No, you went through the book page by page or chapter by chapter or whatever, and you learned it. Why? Because you need to learn it in stages, and your Christian life is the same way. And when you put away the truth and depart from it, you're going to get in trouble. Because you start denying one truth in here, you know what you'll end up doing? You'll end up denying the next one. Amen. Turn to Matthew 7. If you don't know what that sound is, brother, that's I'm dying. I hear Christians with the same sound. Matthew 7, verse 13. Enter ye in at the strait gate, and wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be that go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth to life, and few there be that find it. Beware of false prophets. Now, does that mean beware of false prophets or just be cautious? I mean, I just read you some reports from some false prophets.
Yeah, amen.
And you see these guys, and they've got a fully packed auditorium of, 13 or 14,000 people. And none of them are reading this book. And if they are, he's not the false prophet.
Amen.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, they turn that thing around and convince people that they're okay. It's the other guy you got to be watching.
Amen.
That's why they call us names. Beware of the false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grape of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, and a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. I've heard people say, well, you shouldn't judge them. I'm not. I'm judging their fruit. I can be a fruit judge. I can tell you the difference between a bad apple and a good apple. I don't even have to bite it. You ever reach in a bag of potatoes and find the bottom one? Huh? I'm not much of a diaper changer, but I think I'd rather change a diaper than get into that. I just stuck them in the bathtub. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Can I ask a question here? Anybody didn't understand that verse? How is it that people don't understand that verse? What is so difficult about that verse? A corrupt tree brings forth what? I'm not sure what's so difficult. I mean, my English isn't very good, but I can understand that. Every tree that bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Anybody have a problem with that one? Maybe you don't understand the word hewn. I don't see how you could be born up in this part of the country and not understand hewn. Every tree that bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and cast into fire. Wherefore by their fruits you shall know them. So I have the right to know them by what? The Lord. What did the Lord say? I would know them by what they do. What's so difficult about that? There's not anything difficult. That's people who don't want to face truth, and so they blame you for judging people. One of them told me years ago, said, you just don't like them because they got a bigger ministry than you. And I went, no, I wouldn't want the ministry they've got. I mean, the Lord's allowed me to have up to 100 and some here some years ago. We're down to about 60, 65 maybe, 70. That's a lot for me. In my age, that's too much. But I'm not jealous of any man's ministry. Because you know what I know? The more people you have, the more problems you're going to get. Why? People are people. They're human beings. They make mistakes. They do dumb things. Okay? So it doesn't mean that all the problems you have are bad. It just means you're going to have them. So I'd rather have a few that's faithful to God and do what they ought to do than to have a church full of people that, half the time you didn't know if they was trying to stab you in the back or not. Well, we could read the rest of that chapter, but I'm not going to do that because you're familiar with that. Turn to Proverbs 15 just a minute. Well, no, turn to Psalm 6. We'll get the other one in just a minute. Okay. Psalm 6. Verse 8, depart from me, all you workers of iniquity, for the Lord hath heard the voice of my weeping. So we have the command to depart from some things. And follow that through, if you will, to Proverbs 15. Proverbs 15:24. The way of life is above to the wise, but that he may depart from hell beneath. So there's a warning about things, and you're commanded to depart from some things. You better watch out what the world's trying to get you to do or what the religious world's trying to get you to do. And right now, there's a big push in the religious world to get you to accept the gay marriages and the sodomy and the transgenders and all that kind of stuff. I don't hate those people. You don't want to hate them. But at the same time, you cannot approve of what they're doing. But there's a big push in the religious world to accept that kind of stuff. And eventually what it's going to get down is that you and I are the bad guys.
Amen.
That's where it's coming. And with the president we got right now, I don't know who you trust. Thank you, son. You're correct. That's what we got left. Maybe our problem was for all those years we was trusting presidents instead of trusting God, and that got us in trouble. I mean, when you got, 60-some% of all the people, Democrats, Republicans, who don't want either one of those two fellows running. That ought to tell you something. 60% of the Democrats don't want Biden, and 70% of the Republicans don't want the